Peace, peace. It's your girl, Morgan Renee Myers, tuning in for another reading of For Freedom's Sake. Who mowing that grass all loud? Hold on. I'm going to try to speak up because I'm not moving or going in. So we are on chapter 2 of For Freedom's Sake, The Life of Fannie Lou Hamer by Chana Lee. It's entitled, the chapter number 2 is entitled Black Woman Leader. I'm likely not to get through all of it. These chapters are kind of lengthy, but wherever my stopping point will be, it'll be a good one, and then I'll just, come back, and I am downloading these and uploading them to my YouTube, which is Morgan Myers, MorganMyers on YouTube, and you can find me with the red logo with the M in the middle, More my company. You should be getting familiar with it by now. So yeah, I have some of these earrings too. All right, let me hop into the book. All right. It starts off with a quote by Aaron D. Greason that reads, "When spider webs unite, they can tie up lions." Oh, that was an African proverb. Here's the quote by Aaron. "Perhaps the primary human task is the establishment of a personal identity, a unique style, a signature. Of course, this task contains an irony. One is to attain a sense of self created largely from the materials given one by others, family, community, and culture." Okay. All right. Let's hop into it. Black Woman Leader. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I've been trying to see who hopped on to be trying to read and to be making my eyes cross. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, came to Ruleville, Mississippi. Now, let me give you a brief rundown. So, in the first chapter, we learned a lot about Fannie Lou's upbringing. So, she is the daughter of sharecroppers. Her mother and father were both sharecroppers in Mississippi. Her, hey, Nell, look at my cousin. Hey, girl. Okay, my brain, I don't know where it's at right now. So, yes, she was the daughter of sharecroppers. Pray that this thing don't fall on my head, this little umbrella. I tried to, rig it. Oh, my God. It's a lot going on right now. And her grandparents, her grandmother was an actual former slave, and she was pretty much passed around like a hot potato. She had 20 kids that was not consensual with white men that would just have sex with her and trade her for a pig or a cow here and there. But she did have 3 children, which was consensual with a black man. And out of those 3 children, Fannie Lou's mother was born. And so then Fannie Lou's mother went on to have about 20 herself. And Fannie Lou was the youngest of all of these kids. So she kind of got away with stuff. Her parents were up in age when they had her. Fannie got tricked into sharecropping at a young age, at age 6. She, I think she said she had polio or some type of limp. She had something going on, but they were poor, so they were starving. And one of the overseers were walking by and pretty much tempted her, persuaded her. What's the word when you trying to get over on somebody? He did that to her, promised her all this food and stuff like that if she would pick a certain amount of cotton in a week. And so she did, and she got paid for doing so. So yeah. What else happened? And then it just talked about just growing up. Her family history contributed to her movement in the civil rights movement and things like that. It's also believed that we know she adopted 2 children, but there's some, because this is a biography, meaning it's written about her. So there are other books that this author references that says that she maybe had miscarriages, and then some are saying that she didn't speak on that in her life at all or in her own autobiography. So we're not too sure. But we feel like there was definitely some misdealings. But we do know that she went in for something and she came out having a whole hysterectomy. So, yeah, just how doctors, mistreat women's bodies and things like that. So these are a lot of her background and her personal experiences led up to why, she was so active and had a voice in the civil rights movement. All right. That's my little rundown. Black Woman Leader. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, came to Ruleville, Mississippi in August 1962, and 44-year-old Fannie Lou Hamer attempted to vote for the first time. Oh, she also is married to someone at this time, and they live in their own life, sharecropping and doing different stuff. She used to people that was still, picking cotton and stuff, she would weigh their barrels and stuff, and she would do little things, to add weight onto it so they can get paid out more because the system was already set against them type shit. She a real cool lady. All right. So Fannie Lou Hamer attempted to vote for the first time. From that point on, her life changed dramatically. The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee emerged during an intense period of domestic social upheaval, a period beginning in the late 50s and reaching its peak during the mid-60s. African Americans and other Americans of like minds let their discontent with the racial order in the American South and later on in northern areas be known using a variety of tactics ranging from litigation and boycotting to sit-ins. A civil rights organization originally comprised of college students, SNCC spearheaded the freedom movement of the 60s with its voter registration campaigns in the Black Belt areas of Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. Its original emphasis included lunch counter desegregation, but the group's members later reasoned that someone making only 23 cents an hour or $3 a day could not even afford to eat at a lunch counter. Consequently, the organization shifted its emphasis to gaining political power. That makes sense. So they boycotting in places where they can't even afford to eat, let alone are they welcome there. But we couldn't even afford to eat there if we wanted to. So, let's focus this energy elsewhere. We're doing, I be feeling like, even with the times that we're in now, we're in 2020, we got quarantine, we got all type of police brutality been popping off, but we're riling up about it and protesting. So that's even now, if we see we're just enraged about certain things and we taking action, but it's is this energy being put toward the areas that it would be most beneficial, or are we just doing something to do something to be seen so we can be heard? Let's be intentional about this. So I like that. Yeah. Can't even afford to eat there. The hell we boycotting there for? So consequently, the organization shifted its emphasis to gaining political power and combating economic inequalities. What attracted Hamer to SNCC was its commitment to local autonomy as the basis of sustained militancy, as well as his belief that the movement was best served by building pockets of community leadership. In this respect, SNCC was largely influenced by Ella Jo Baker, the longtime activist who had called the organization together in 1960. Baker held firmly to the conviction that strong people don't need strong leaders. Fannie Lou Hamer soon became one of the more well-known of the local leaders, combining grassroots support with the power to be heard nationally. One hot day in August 1962, an individual in Hamer's Ruleville church stood up and announced that a group of young people will be visiting the area to teach people how to register to vote. The visitors were members of the Council of Federated Organizations, or COFO, an umbrella coalition of major civil rights organizations, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, the National Urban League, NUL, the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, and SNCC. The council was established in 1961 for the purpose of promoting cooperation and less competition among organizations with different civil rights agendas in Mississippi. That's peaceful. A series of meetings between townfolk and COFO, which was the Council of Federated Organizations. Representatives, so a series of meetings between townfolk and COFO representatives, mostly SNCC members, were scheduled to begin the following Monday, August 27th at Williams Chapel Missionary Baptist Church, the only house of worship in the community that allowed voter registration workers a forum. Mary Tucker notified Hamer about the meeting. Tucker, in her 60s, was a longtime family friend of the Townsends. Townsends is Hamer's former name. Hey, Sharon. Okay, Tucker was in her 60s, so yeah. So a longtime friend of the Townsends. She was like an aunt to Hamer, who affectionately called her Tuck. Tucker remembered her friends not being as eager as Hamer liked to claim in later recollections. When Tucker invited Hamer to her house to hear the youngsters talk about the coming mass meeting and its purpose, Hamer replied, "What for, Tuck?" Tucker offered the reasons that would mean something to her. Hamer replied with marked disinterest, "Tuck, they taught us that mess in school, and that's turned me off like that." Her feelings hurt. Tucker persisted. I felt real bad, but I wouldn't let on, she recalled. Although Hamer stayed away from the planning meeting at Tucker's house, she considered going to the larger gathering that was to take place at the church. She asked her husband what he thought about the meeting. With few exceptions, Fannie Lou consulted with Perry Hamer on matters regarding her subsequent civil rights activities. In this regard, theirs appeared to be a conventional marriage. Regarding her political activism and its potential effect on her marriage, Hamer once noted that she always liked to run things by Pap so that he would know that he was still the man of the house. After gaining Pap's approval, Hamer prepared to attend SNCC's first Ruleville meeting. The next evening, Hamer went back to Tucker's house and apologized for being so dismissive. Tuck, I came to beg your pardon. I never sassed you before in my life, and it hurt me so bad when I thought about what I had said to you. They left for the mass meeting at Williams Chapel. At this COFO sponsored meeting, the Reverend James Bevel, a staff member with SCLC, and 3 SNCC members, James Foreman, Bob Moses, and Reginald Robinson, informed a fascinated audience of its constitutional rights as citizens of the United States and the state of Mississippi. Specifically, they told the audience that as adults, they were all eligible to vote, and more important, eligible to vote out of office those individuals most responsible for keeping them down. Why they want to mow when I come on live? Hold on, y'all. Give me a second. Can y'all still hear me? Let me send a thumbs up or say something if you can still hear me over this mower. I really don't want to move. He ain't got that much to cut. Alright, let me get it in while I can. Alright, so at this COFO sponsored meeting, the Reverend James Bevel, a staff member with SCLC, and 3 SNCC members, James Foreman, Bob Moses, and Reginald Robinson, informed a fascinated audience of its constitutional rights as citizens of the United States and of the state of Mississippi. Specifically, they told the audience that as adults, they were all eligible to vote, and more important, eligible to vote out of office those individuals most responsible for keeping them down. Not the least of these was Senator James O. Eastland. Bevel then delivered a stirring sermon entitled Discerning the Signs of Time, based on a Bible passage, Luke 12:54. The sermon called on everyone to recognize the signs of the times and to act on them, much as one would see clouds forming in the sky and prepare for coming rain. The Civil Rights Workers' presentation contained new and exciting information for the group. It certainly lit a fire in Hamer, apparently to the point of helping her ignore or forget her initial response to Tucker's invitation. In reflecting on the gathering at the church, Hamer noted, "Until then, I'd never heard of no mass meeting, and I didn't know that a Negro could register and vote." The COFO representatives told the eager group that they would have to fill out voter registration applications, which they were taught to do that night. The SNCC members then asked who would be willing to go to the county courthouse in Indianola to secure this most precious of rights. 18 people raised their hands and expressed an interest in testing a long-standing practice of excluding blacks from Southern politics and thereby limiting their control over their own destinies. Before leaving the church, the organizers made sure the volunteers signed their names on a list of those who were going to make that historic step the following day, August 31st, 1962. Among the courageous 18, Hamer emerged as the leader, virtually by consensus. No vote or other actions gave her this position. It was a logical extension of her role as community leader, a position derived largely from her work as a timekeeper on the plantation. So the timekeeper, she was the one that was weighing the cotton and stuff, so she really looked out for people, got them extra bread, you know, like, she looked out. She was the community home girl. During the mass meeting, Hamer was not only among the first to commit to go, but she also encouraged others to make the same fateful decision through an impromptu, charismatic personal testimony. As June Jordan put it, her bravery made them brave. Hamer sensed that change was necessary, and her decision was undoubtedly influenced by the excitement she felt at the possibility of realizing a better life, a life in which the needs of the poor ceased going unnoticed. I could just see myself voting people out of office that I know was wrong and didn't do nothing to help the poor, Hamer recalled, foreshadowing her central preoccupation with empowering the impoverished. At the end of the mass meeting, she resolved, I had made up my mind that I was going to come out there when they said you could go down that Friday to try and register. Hamer's decision to get involved in voter registration registration work was not, as she put it, a bolt out of the blue. The vote symbolized hope and empowerment for the individual. She had reflected and dreamed about its transformative potential. It represented a way out of a seemingly hopeless and permanent situation. It was a concrete response to the perpetual injustice that filled the lives of the Southern poor. Voting was a practical answer for a very practical, no-nonsense woman who was exceedingly impatient for something better. In the fields, Hamer had long pondered bringing a change in conditions for herself and those around her, although she was not certain that voting might be a way to do this. Before SNCC came, she talked so much about this that some labeled her the one who didn't have real good sense, much in the same way that folks had talked about her mother when she did whatever it took to protect her children from abusive white men. At any particular hope-filled moment, Hamer was not given much thought to the dangers. Hamer had not given much thought to the dangers involved in trying to realize this basic democratic right. It just all made good sense to her, and she simply knew that she wanted to be a part of this activity. In her recorded autobiography, she conveyed her enthusiasm by describing her immediate reaction. When they asked for those to raise their hands who go down to the courthouse the next day, I raised mine, had it up as high as I could get it. It was not until years later, after a number of brushes with death, that she thought about how dangerous this undertaking was. I guess if I'd had any sense, I'd have been a little scared. The only thing they could do to me was kill me, and it seemed like they'd been trying to do that a little bit of time ever since I could remember. During the town meeting, Hamer found inspiration in the freedom songs. The intense energy and persuasive force expressed through the music reinforced Hamer's conviction that this would be an important moment in her community's history. She began to feel an attachment to these young activists that would remain in place for a long time. The songs eliminated any doubt in her mind. These activists really wanted to change the world, I knew. They wanted blacks to register to vote. They wanted blacks to be able to have some small say about their destiny. Hold on, knocked up my water. Most of the movement songs impelled people to action by their visionary, empowering lyrics that foretold the dawning of a new society. Freedom songs like Ain't Nobody Gonna Let Me Turn Around, We Shall Overcome, Keep Your Eyes on the Prize, and This Little Light of Mine emphasize individual perseverance while encouraging steadiness of purpose and the elimination of fear. In essence, the freedom songs, whether sacred or secular, must have sounded like direct personal appeals for a deeply spiritual Hamer to draw on two central motifs of her life, struggle and courage. Later in the week of the town meeting, Hamer and 17 other defiant members of the Ruleville community climbed aboard an old bus chartered by SNCC and owned by a black man who used it during the winter for transporting local cotton field hands from Mississippi to Florida and Georgia. It was 26 miles from Ruleville to the county seat in Indianola. As the bus pulled into Indianola, Hamer immediately began taking notice of the wild scene outside the courthouse. A crowd had started forming near the bus as the vehicle pulled up to its final destination. Wearing cowboy hats and toting guns, hostile white men and women were gathered around the courthouse, their panting dogs faithfully by their sides. They reminded Hamer of Judge Clampett, meaning Jed Clampett of the television series The Beverly Hillbillies and that bunch, but they wasn't kidding down there. And she certainly had just cause for thinking they were serious, for Indianola was notorious as the birthplace of the White Citizens Council, a supremacist group founded in resistance to the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision outlawing segregated schools. Apparently, Hamer was unprepared for the big commotion the efforts to register would cause. In spite of the advice and warnings of the younger, more experienced activists and the record of her own experiences, she was momentarily shocked and puzzled by the scene. It took a minute or two before it dawned on her who and what were the real center of attention. By the time she figured out what was taking place, she had committed herself too deeply to the task at hand to draw back or to desert her 17 prospective co-registrants. Excuse me, it was split up. Her 17 prospective co-registrants or the SNCC staff members. As the 18 marched up to the courthouse and prepared to enter the registrar's office, they were met by a very unfriendly circuit clerk, Cecil B. Campbell. Making sure that these Ruleville citizens did not feel in the least bit welcome, he inquired about the purpose of their visit. In a 1968 interview, Hamer remembered that as a group approached, he snapped, "What do you want?" With little hesitation, Hamer proudly responded, "We are here to register." Campbell then directed them to go back outside and re-enter in pairs. Hamer and Ernest Davis stayed inside while the others left the courthouse and waited patiently until they were called. Hamer and Davis entered and provided their full names. The registrar then directed them to answer 21 more questions on their place of employment, employer, place of residence, and even the date of the application itself. Forewarned, Hamer and the others knew very well that this information will be turned over to the hostile White Citizens Council, but they provided the information despite the life-threatening risk involved. Hamer and the others that had come to understand the significance of SNCC's presence. They knew that the organizational or structural opportunities for change had presented themselves. Thus, they sought to take full advantage of this brief period in their lives, and Hamer's presence as the leader seemed to motivate the delegation to stand firm. All right, I'm going to stop there for now just because it's so loud out here and I'm cramping a little bit. So I'm going to go relax and I'll come back in a little bit. All right, peace.